Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Self-Reliant Way to Master Creativity and Productivity so we can get something done and then we can have some fun. And then life's a beautiful thing. So a lot of ground to cover today. We have a couple more guidelines to dig into. And so let's get started. And the first one is based on the idea that we can't sit around with the vision for whatever we're doing forever. We have to start executing. And in his typical pithy fashion, Andy calls this throwing the dart. And it means to move forward in some direction, because a dart thrown in any direction may lead us to the right direction. And we may have to throw it several times. But never throwing it means never getting anywhere. And that's paralysis by analysis. Once we get started, the rest gets easier. We throw the dart, we stop overthinking out of avoidance or insecurity, and embrace and go with the flow and overcome inertia. And once we're in motion, hopefully we stay that way. So at some point, and most of us know when it is, it's time to throw the dart. Now, once we've thrown that dart, the next piece is to determine the sequence of events. And in this course, we call that our logical procedure. Once you've decided to do something, there's usually a self-generating set of steps involved. And this is how we approach a given project or creative idea. And it's an effective order with actionable steps, and that allows us to create precision in our pursuits. And along the way, we do expect some, what I like to call, unfortunate discoveries, where we engage a project and then we find out more is required than we first thought. It's like you cross one item off the list, but you put 3 more on it. And this also includes come to find out moments when we discover what's really behind or motivating us, or how something actually gets done or made or accomplished, and we really underestimated that at first glance. So as we progress through our project and complete each aspect, pathways begin emerging to provide direction towards accomplishing subsequent tasks. It's a balancing act to remain mindful of completing the current task before jumping to the next one. This often happens when we get excited, and this creates gaps in the project and results in non-completion. Momentum cannot continue if tasks don't get executed or we otherwise over-ruminate on the vision. When tasks don't get executed in a timely fashion, things grind to a halt, and momentum wanes, and we feel like we got to start all over again. And this can be very frustrating. And I think, too, it illustrates why those who sort of grind away a little bit each day are very successful, because they stay with the tasks, and the rest of us want to judge them. And then we start having these rebellious voices starting up like, I'm not gonna, and you can't make me. And now we have to deal with our inner 3-year-old trying to override the responsible adult. And that, my friend, is distraction personified. So once you get started, be mindful of what the logical procedure for the task at hand, the project, the vision, what is it? You'll get it, and you'll save yourself a lot of grief. Because one of the things you're going to save yourself is the next guideline, which is avoiding effort for nothing. Once we're underway, let's discuss a few commonly encountered issues, because we all find ourselves saying, wow, what I just did, total waste of time there. And we've just become aware of doing an unnecessary action, and it didn't move us closer to the vision. And what we thought was going to happen in the big picture of things, it didn't. So this is effort for nothing. And it has a few sources. And one obvious one is when we don't clearly understand a given task or how it relates to the overall vision. Another is not thinking through the sequence of events necessary to complete a project. Could be we just plunged in, we're full of vim and vigor, and we just jumped into the midtones and the highlights before we really had the broad stroke of it fully established. The most insidious part or aspect of effort for nothing is when we attempt to create solutions for problems that don't exist. And this often happens out of frustration, and we can't solve an immediate challenge, and we start making up different ones to occupy ourselves, and then our life process and general mood in the moment starts to create, well, mayhem. Not a beautiful thing. So be mindful when challenges arise. Am I trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist? Because maintaining a self-reliant creative process requires an inherently sustainable level of commitment and accountability with ourselves. And those projects and activities involving others become a blend of personality and experience and intelligence and the creative process, and they all act to produce, hopefully, a dynamic outcome for all concerned. Now, some goals, once reached, absolutely trigger celebration, but others, however, tend to ring hollow, often because we focused less on the process, the journey, and more on the expectations the result would bring. So by focusing on key targets along the way, we enjoy the process of engaging better, and we maintain awareness of what's going on around us and in us as we follow the various targets to the final outcome, which is the goal itself. And here, going back to the Venn diagram of the right and left side of the brain, there becomes this almost seamless interplay between them. And we're creative and expressive in one moment and structured and analytical the next. And there's an evolution where it becomes like a paradigm shift. And when there's enough skill set mastery and enough time on task, our work becomes more like play. And this play permeates itself into our work. And work and play, like task and vision, continuously clarify each other. And when we're shifting between that micro and macro point of view, between task and vision, one of the best things we can do is to focus on our breathing. Because when we consciously focus on our breathing, bring it all down to just the breath, we can hit reset, and we create a valuable pause between stimulus, which is the idea, and response, which is the action. Between stimulus and response exists the negative or unused space, and negative space defines the intent. And when you produce a picture or a drawing or a painting, there is the negative space. It's the space that's not being used. And in so doing, it creates context to the space that is being used. And also consider the space between words, because that's what gives them their meaning. That's the negative space. Otherwise, you would just have a long string of letters and it would make no sense. And this recognition is an illustration of the importance of getting quiet and centered and staying in the middle and not getting too high or low. because otherwise there's no negative space in our thoughts or our actions, and we just have a nonstop barrage of thought and activity, often followed by a collapse. And letting the creative process guide us does challenge this thinking that we have to drop the veil of effort and focus simply on being effective, and that our actions now become measured against results. Because effort should be applauded, but the clapping rings empty if the results aren't there. People who minimize the struggle, as it were, whether in the creative process or with life itself, they understand that we can't go fast until we can go slow. We've got to have control before we have speed. It's like crawl, walk, run. So consider the velocity of thought, ranging from not enough thought, generating little or no activity, to having too much thought. The mind is going too fast. It's generating more activities than we can manage. When two musicians play back and forth, the moment between call and response allows for negative space where the magic occurs. And sometimes time itself acts as negative space when action just needs to pause. See, the sprout grows first below the ground and then above it. And admittedly, many of us resist staying in the middle or not getting too high or too low because we judge it boring and lacking excitement and bereft of joy. Then we realize our own romantic pretensions of creativity, some of which we covered in the first episode. And we have this need to soar, climb up into the clouds. And where is the negative space actually at up there? When we're real high or real low, there's very little negative space. And a client said it this way: I grasped how getting overly excited clouded my ability to manage task and vision, resulting in bad choices, a lot of effort for nothing, and poor outcomes. I have learned how to feel the highs and lows, but not so identify with them in the moment that my thinking gets carried away, and I've internalized it a lot more. And that's well done. And that's the idea. Feeling life's highs and lows naturally occurs, but when we over-identify them, our thinking gets clouded and it takes us out of the rhythm. And it's natural to get excited and our minds speed up, but we have to manage running the risk of going off in 50 different directions and crashing and leaving the landscape littered with unfinished projects or commitments lacking the follow-up. Because now we got a hot mess requiring time and energy to clean up. And that is more effort for nothing. And the homework bell asks us this today. When it's hard for you to throw the dart and get started, why? Why is that? And where and when do you most often create effort for nothing? So put your answers in the comments below, and together we'll sort out our creative process together. And thanks for watching, and thank you so much for liking and subscribing to the video and sharing it with friends and family. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And in the meantime, now you're ready to enjoy the game of life.